it possible to make crunchy, succulent, tender fried chicken in the air fryer? Well, we're about to find out, because in this video, I'm going to be testing 5 different cooking methods and then, based on our findings, create the ultimate air fryer fried chicken recipe for you and I to make at home. So to begin, we're going to be making 3 different types of dipping sauces to go alongside our chicken tenders. You know when people, especially like mukbangers, dunk their chicken tender into like the deepest bowl of sauce, and it's like a really deep bowl? Well, we're going to do that today. So I'm using this nice thinnish deep bowl, and for our first sauce, I'm going to make a homemade ranch style dipping sauce. So to our bowl, I'm going to add some plain or Greek yogurt, regular mayonnaise or Kewpie mayonnaise if you fancy, half of the juice of a lemon, and some freshly grated garlic. I'm just going to use 1 clove. To finish it off, I'm just going to grate in a load of black pepper and some Parmigiano Reggiano. Now let's give that a stir. It's full to the brim, stunning. So we'll set that aside. We're going to move on to our second sauce, which is going to be a honey mustard sauce. So I'm adding some yogurt to another bowl, followed by some more mayonnaise, a good drizzle of honey, and some Dijon mustard. You can go for the smooth stuff or the chunky whole grain Dijon. Totally up to you. I'm squeezing in a bit of lemon juice and grinding in some black pepper, and let's give that a good mix and set it aside for later. Our last dipping sauce is a spicy number. So to a smaller bowl, I've run out of the other ones, so we're going to use this one instead. I'm adding in some gochujang. You could totally use sriracha if you fancy, followed by some mayonnaise, yogurt, freshly grated garlic, gochugaru flakes, which are kind of like Korean red pepper flakes, and some sugar. Let's give that a mix until it's really well combined, and then I'm just going to set that aside. Now onto the chicken. So it's in the name, but the best cut for making chicken tenders is chicken tenderloin. You can see that on some chicken breasts, they've still left the tenderloin on it, and it's this small strip of meat found just beneath the breast. It's soft, juicy, giving tenders their signature tenderness. However, because tenderloins can be harder to find or they're just more expensive, chicken breast is often used as an alternative. Now for a richer or juicier option, boneless and skinless chicken thighs are elite when it comes to flavor and super juiciness. However, they're not the shape of a tenderloin. They're used a lot for chicken karaage, which is a Japanese fried chicken and actually a coating method that we're going to be testing out in this video. So if you don't care about the shape of your chicken tender, then feel free to use chunks of boneless and skinless chicken thighs. But for today, we're going to use a mixture of chicken tenders, strips, and sliced chicken breast. And as you can see, I've just sliced the chicken breast, so it's kind of the same size as the chicken tender. So the first method of the day is the cornflake method. I'm gonna add some plain flour to a bowl and season with salt and pepper, then add a couple of eggs to another bowl and whisk them up until combined, and lastly, some cornflakes into a bowl. And I'm just crushing them with my hands, but you could totally add them to a sealed bag and crush them with like a rolling pin. 1 chicken tender strip into the flour, let's coat that, and then we're gonna go into the eggs, followed by the cornflakes. Now I'm gonna do a double coating to maximize crunch and ensure that all of the chicken tender is coated and that the moisture remains sealed within the chicken. Where cooking these chicken tenders in an air fryer differs massively is the oil content. So in order for the coating to not burn and instead crisp up, we're going to use this sunflower oil spray and gently spray the chicken tenders until lightly coated in oil. I'm then going to air fry them until golden and crispy, hoping that the chicken is tender and juicy inside. This is the cooked product. I am loving the look of the golden crust. I'm just going to whip up a quick saucy coating for our chicken tenders, and look how smothered and glossy that is. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, so it's only right for us to try the plain chicken tender as it is. Just from first analysis, there are quite a few cornflakes that are dropping off, which is a bit of a mess, but I think that might just be because I made the cornflake bits a little bit too big. Okay, so we're just gonna go in plain, and we're gonna rate the cragginess, the crispiness, the tenderness, flavor, and would I make it for a friend? Oh God, this is going everywhere. Okay. And then we'll try it with the oil and the dipping sauces. It's quite craggy because you've got the cornflakes, so it adds a few like crevices and mountains of cornflake, and it is pretty craggy. So I'd probably give that like a 7.5 in terms of cragginess. For crispiness, I would say it's done a pretty good job in terms of the crunch, the crisp. Not overwhelming, but because we've got that double layer of cornflakes, that will enhance our crispiness flavor. So I'd probably give that a 7.5 as well, maybe an 8. Now in terms of tenderness of the chicken, really good. A solid 8.5. It's nice and succulent and tender, really easy to bite into, no chewiness at all. And now for the flavor, we'll move on to the full package. Now for this, I'm gonna try it with the honey mustard and with the ranch sauce because I feel like it'll go well with both. Bon appetit. That combo is elite. Honestly, the flavors are unreal. Like the buffalo hot sauce with a little bit of honey, the ranch tangy, cheesy dressing. Like it, I feel like chicken tenders don't get much better than that. I'm gonna have to give it a 9.5. Flavor's just too good. For the ranch dressing, now let's try with the honey mustard. Nice, but it doesn't even compare to the buffalo ranch. But I would probably give that like a 7.5 or 8 because the ranch just is so good. Now, I would argue the most important question, would I make this for a friend? Yes, I would absolutely make the buffalo ranch sauce for a friend. The honey mustard one, it's still really good. Like if I were a friend and I were to receive it, I'd be like, whoa, damn, this is good. But the ranch is just like, you would become their best friend from making them this, I feel. For our next method, we're taking inspiration from Japanese karaage or karaage. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. I'm pretty sure, I've watched a couple of videos and people say karaage. Anyway, I recently had it at a supper club I went to and it was really, really good and I'd never had it before. So it inspired one of the coatings for this video because it's kind of like it's kind of an interesting coating. So we'll see how the air fryer deals with it. So to begin, we're adding the chicken strips into our bowl and then marinating the chicken with soy sauce, rice wine vinegar or sake, that's the more traditional ingredient for the alcohol content, sugar, fresh garlic and fresh ginger. Now I'm going to give that a really good stir and then set it aside to marinate for around 30 minutes. This will help tenderize the chicken and infuse it with all of the delicious salty flavors. Should be so good. Now for our coating, we're using potato starch. And what this should theoretically create as a coating is a super ultra crispy, glossy, crispy shell that Karaage is famous for. So let's coat our marinated chicken in the potato starch, lay it down on our air fryer rack, and then generously spray it with oil. So the issue I'm finding here is that it's just removing the potato starch from the chicken when I spray. So my plan is to lightly spray it, then cook for a few minutes, then reapply the oil spray, flipping over the chicken and applying the oil spray there too, and hopefully the end result is delicious and fantastic. Okay, so the result isn't as glossy glass-like finish as I'd want, but it's not too bad. It's not too far off. You know, I'm pretty chuffed with how these come out actually. Not sure on the crispiness levels. Now the initial flavor of these ones should be really good because obviously we marinated the chicken in a lovely mixture first. So I'm gonna just take a bite. Cragginess is obviously not up there. It's a very, very smooth surface. So for cragginess, I'm literally gonna give it like a 1 because obviously there are slight inundations in the chicken with little crumples of flour that have kind of coagulated. It's not strong for cragginess. Crispiness, I give it like a 2.5 maybe. The initial bite is actually quite soft, but then you've got like semi-crunchy areas around the sides of the chicken. I was just very careful because I didn't want to burn the flour. So unless you keep reapplying the oil and then adding them into the air fryer, which essentially is obviously going to be better than deep frying, but if you just keep reapplying the oil, then you just might as well deep fry it. So not fantastic on the crispiness. For our tender metric, I'm surprised at the lack of tenderness actually. Okay, that's a better bite. Because there's a thinner coating, the tenderness is different in different parts of the chicken. So I would have said it varies from like a 3 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. So I'll give it like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 for tenderness. The flavor, just on its own, is nice. You've got like a lovely kind of salty seasoning with pops of garlic and ginger in there. You can definitely taste everything. But now we're gonna give it a little go with our gochujang sauce. I maybe should have used sriracha, but sriracha, gochujang, both would work. Honestly, I think the flavors of the gochujang sauce and the soy sauce, garlic, ginger marinade are really lovely, but the flavor and the texture of the coating just isn't doing it for me. It's way too floury. As I said before, you'd have to keep reapplying it with oil, which kind of just defeats the point. It would be quite high effort as like a chicken tender air fried situation. And there are parts of the chicken coating that are still like quite dry or kind of powdery in your mouth, which I personally just don't love. So flavor, I'm gonna give a 6.5. And would I make this for a friend? Potentially, if I kept reapplying the oil every couple of minutes, and if it ended up being that crispy glass finish that occurs when you deep fry it, then potentially. But with the powdery coating and pretty low crisp, at this rate, it would probably be a no. Next up, we're going for a method that I saw my friend Zena post about. She made this delicious looking fried chicken using something called the claw method and using 00 flour. And her end product looked genuinely phenomenal, and she deep fried it. So I'm intrigued to see whether we can make this work in the air fryer. So I'm adding some chicken slices to a bowl, What's new? Seasoning with salt and pepper. Then I'm gonna coat in paprika and mayonnaise. Now, marinating or coating chicken with mayonnaise tenderizes the chicken, adds a rich flavor because of the egg yolks, improves the browning, and it locks in more moisture. I'm gonna leave that to marinate for 30 minutes, and once that's rested, we're gonna combine 00 flour and salt as our coating. You're probably wondering why 00 flour over all-purpose flour, and I did some research, and apparently the 00 flour should give a light, elegant crunch compared to all-purpose flour, which gives more of like a rustic crunch. Now I'm using the claw method to scrunch the flour into the chicken to create those kind of craggy bits, like this. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop that on the tray, give them all a spray, and then whack them into the air fryer. Now, I guess I didn't have to do this, but I chose to reapply with oil halfway through, but I'm actually not even sure if I needed to do it, but I did it anyway. And the final result is looking golden and quite craggy. Just for an extra step, I'm gonna create an oil, paprika, and honey coating to lightly soak the chicken tenders in. It makes the chicken tenders look super golden and shiny and beautiful. The cragginess in this isn't as good as I hoped. If you compare it to when they've been deep fried, the way in which this works when deep fried turns out a lot better. So I'm semi-disappointed in the lack of cragginess. So I think in terms of cragginess, I'm probably gonna give it like a 3 or a 4, maybe a 5, just because we have got like some kind of in-depth crevasses and a few little craggedy bits here and there. Now, as for crispiness, I'm actually gonna bite into the one that I just put loads of sauce on. It does look really good. Boom. I kind of could have predicted this because the issue when you coat something with lots of flour and then you put it in the air fryer, it stays dry. The whole point of deep frying is that the oil soaks into the flour and makes it crispy, meaning that you've got a moist, oily, succulent bite. And the issue with the air fryer is that it dries it out. So unless you spray loads of oil onto the flour, you're gonna kind of end up with this dry, quite powdery coating. And I'm afraid that's kind of what's happened here. I actually prefer the potato starch one. The 00 flour is really dry and is quite like overpoweringly floury, whereas the potato starch was less intense in its flavor. I would say, however, the crispiness is slightly better, like the crunch factor. So I'll maybe give that like a 4. Next up, we're on to the tenderness of the chicken breast. Tenderness is good, nothing wacky. The chicken has stayed moist and juicy, which is lovely. So I'll probably give that like a 6.5. And the flavor, I mean, let's dip it in a sauce and find out, shall we? Guys, I'm gonna be real with you. That coating just isn't it. The honey mustard sauce is delightful, but the intensity of the flour just takes over the flavor of the chicken. So would I make this for a friend? Sadly not. The fourth method on our list is inspired by Schnitzel. Now, obviously a classic Schnitzel is pounded and made flat. But for our experiment, we're gonna coat our chicken strips in the way in which Schnitzel is coated. So let's get some all-purpose flour in a bowl, some eggs whisked in another bowl, and lastly, the golden breadcrumbs in a third bowl. I'm gonna coat the chicken tenders in plain flour, then the eggs, and we'll repeat this process so that the chicken is well coated and optimized for the maximum crisp. They actually look really good. And because the breadcrumbs are heavier than flour, when I spray them, the breadcrumbs don't go everywhere, which genuinely is a win, to be honest. Now, I was thinking about this. You could totally use a brush and dab the chicken with oil. That's definitely something that I'd be intrigued to try. And if any of you have done that before, let me know in the comments. But for now, we're just gonna spray them. And then I'm gonna air fry them until golden. They've got little specks of lightly more colored areas, but I'm not gonna lie, they're not looking too bad. They are genuinely really nice and crispy. They've got a golden exterior. I probably should have flipped them over, but even the bottom is quite crispy. This is looking promising. Now let's look at the cragginess. It's not fantastic, but it's not awful. Like, we've got some little baby crevasses there. We've got a few little crevasses on that one too. But in general, because we've been using a golden breadcrumbed coating, it ain't gonna be that craggy. So realistically, the cragginess is like a 3. Onto crispiness. The crispiness is not bad. Not bad at all. I would give that like a solid 7. Maybe even a 7.5, you know? I'm actually gonna just squeeze a little bit of lemon. I'd say this is pretty tender. I'd give it like a good 7 out of 10. It's not dry, but it's not overly juicy. So I'm not gonna give it any higher than a 7 because I feel like I could do with a little bit of extra juice and tenderness. There is still a nice level of moisture there for sure. Now for the flavor, I did add on a little squeeze of lemon, which is giving off those kind of Schnitzel vibes, which I love. Overall, I'm really loving this flavor compared to the flour coatings. But let's go in with some ranch sauce because it would be a crime not to. Although I will say, the breadcrumb kind of becomes like quite a set, stuck coating. Like if you see, it's kind of like it's not actually attached to the chicken. It kind of creates its own coating, which I'm not sure, I don't like that. I want it to be stuck to the chicken and embody the chicken so that it's like, you're not going anywhere, chicken, and you as a coating are coming with me. See what I mean? Good crisp though, good crisp. The flavor is actually really not that bad. I really like the toastedness that's coming from the golden breadcrumbs. It's cooked to a really nice level, and although the coating kind of comes apart from the chicken, which I'm not a fan of, the overall flavor of the chicken and the breadcrumbs air fried like that together, it's actually really quite nice. So I'll give the flavor a 7. Would I make this for a friend? Yes, I would. I don't think I would do it as chicken tenders per se. I think I would genuinely turn this into a schnitzel. Like I think doing an air fryer schnitzel situation would be really lovely. With a little bit of lemon, some chips on the side with some other bits and bobs. I think that'd be really fun. Our final trial before creating the ultimate air fryer fried chicken tender is one that will be very well known amongst our American viewers. It's the buttermilk method, which massively tenderizes our chicken and gives it that kind of tangy, milky, acidic, creamy flavor. So we're gonna add our chicken strips to a bowl and then add in the buttermilk. Now, for those of you who don't have buttermilk on the reg, and I would say up until like the last year, buttermilk has been quite hard to find in the UK, although I did get this one from Asda, which, guys, when I saw it in Asda, I was like, winning, because it's really just not been around. It's not an ingredient that is widely used in the UK, but we found it. It's an exciting day. But anyway, for those of you who don't know what it is or don't know how it tastes, it's essentially a tangy, slightly thick-ish, milky liquid, and it's basically the leftover liquid once you've churned butter. So if you have a butter churner at home, you can make it from scratch, literally. In addition to the buttermilk, we're gonna add in some paprika, ground black pepper, salt, and some garlic for extra flavor. We'll give that a good mix and then marinate it for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's ready to go. So let's create our flour mixture. I'm gonna combine all-purpose flour with baking powder. So as I mentioned before, this one should give us more of like a rustic crunch rather than a lighter, more delicate crunch. I'm adding chicken tender in with a bit of that buttermilk mixture. Create these little globules of the flour which should stick to the chicken and help create the craggy bits we're after. Okay, so I'm just gonna lay them down onto our tray and once again, get that spray on it. Once it's coated to a comfortable level, we're gonna air fry it. Now I've had to do the same thing where I take the chicken out halfway through and reapply the oil. It is a bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie. In terms of like maintenance, the recipes where you have to take the chicken out, reapply the oil, put them back in the air fryer, are a little bit too high maintenance for me. So I'm just gonna take that into account. But regardless, we're gonna see if it works or not. On first glance, there seems to have been a little bit of a mismatch in the even cooking of the chicken. This is a perfect example where we've got the kind of like darker bits here and then there are lighter bits everywhere else. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not gonna work, but aesthetically it's not giving yum, you know? Now, in terms of cragginess, I would have said this one has done the best. Just from it being the flour coating, you've got lots of lovely kind of crevassy areas and peaks and troughs and little mountains and valleys within the chicken. So cragginess, I'd probably give it like a 7.5 or an 8. Onto the crispiness. That's a good level of crispiness. That's a good level of crispiness. I'm impressed. I'll give that a 7. In terms of the tenderness, I'm gonna give that a 7.5 because I think the buttermilk really helped tenderize the chicken. But because we're trying to crisp up the flour coating, I had to cook the chicken for a bit longer, which just slightly overcooks the chicken because either you burn the outside of the flour if you put it on too high a heat, but if you put it on too low a heat, then you're cooking the chicken for too long. The flavor is actually really good, which surprises me because the whole flour thing has really got to me in the other chicken tenders. But the flour flavor for this one is actually really quite nice. It's like got a lovely saltiness to it. It's obviously blended with the flavors from the buttermilk, and all in all, I don't dislike it at all. I'm gonna quickly coat this little bit of chicken tender in some buffalo sauce and some honey, just to really let those flavors shine. Would I make this for a friend? Potentially. It would depend on the friend. Potentially. Okay, now that we've rated our chicken tender methods, these are the results. In last place is, fourth place, third, second place, and in first place. Now, although this is the current ranking of our 5 different methods of chicken tender air frying, there were some techniques from each of the recipes that I think we can combine to create the ultimate chicken tender air fryer recipe. So here we go, and let's give it a go. So I'm going to use the marination method from our Nashville recipe. I'm adding in the chicken tenders to the buttermilk mixture we just created, and I'm going to marinate that for around 30 minutes. Once that's ready, I'm now going to use our cornflakes coating method, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the cornflakes were the best overall as the coating method. Because in my personal opinion, when it comes to air frying, the flour method just isn't fantastic. Unless I'm doing something wrong. But unless you're drowning it in oil, which kind of defeats the point of being air fried, like you might as well just deep fry it by that point, you're just going to be left with these kind of dry, floury clusters in and around the chicken tender, as well as uneven cooking. So it just doesn't taste good, you've got burnt bits, it's just not an ideal situation. So the cornflake method wins on all things craggy and crunchy. I'm coating the buttermilk chicken in the flour, then the egg, then the cornflakes, and we'll repeat this, as you know, so that we have maximum crunch. Let's get them sprayed with a touch of oil. You really don't have to use that much oil either with this method, which in my eyes is such a win. And you don't have to reapply it. We love a low maintenance girly. And we're gonna place them in the air fryer until golden and beautiful. It is ready for the taste test. She is beauty, she is grace. Let's give her a taste. That was not meant to rhyme, but that was actually so good. Honestly, incredible. Now let me tell you why she is incredible, and integrate some of the issues that we found in the other chicken tenders, where this one trumps all of them. Number one, the cragginess, albeit not by flour, but by cornflakes, is just perfect. It provides the perfect crunch, it provides the perfect inundations of the surface. It's just fun, and it stays crunchy, it stays crispy. The cornflakes don't fly off when you're trying to spray it with oil. Number two, it doesn't burn as easily. You've literally got an even layer of golden, glorious coating around the whole of the chicken tender, and that is a dream to me. Because of the buttermilk marinade, the chicken is even more tender and juicy than when we weren't using it. So that's just a win. And then the last thing that I didn't realize was going to be a massive issue, but has been an issue throughout this whole challenge, is that the coating actually sticks to the chicken, maintaining that moisture and maintaining that coating once you bite into it. Like a lot of the other chicken tender recipes using flour, the flour just fell off. Or even with the Schnitzel variety, you're left with like this gap between the coating and the chicken, which I am not a fan of. Now, no chicken tender can be absolutely perfect, so I'm gonna give this specific one a 9.5. In general for everything, and would I make it for a friend? 100% yes, I absolutely would. Honestly, a phenomenal chicken tender. And it's not been deep fried, so it's way healthier, just phenomenal. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do let me know if you give any of the chicken tender recipes a go, and feel free to leave a comment below. I'll see you next week, my friends, and have a gorgeous rest of your day.